If I could go back and delete one listing from Facebook Marketplace, it would be the one that started with, "Quiet private room available for rent, utilities included." That ad cost me way more than a deposit and some peace of mind. It nearly cost me my life. Let me back up. My name's Jenna. I'm 31, single, and living in a 2-bedroom duplex just south of Austin. I'd been working remote since the pandemic, doing back-end support for a small startup, and honestly, money wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. When my old roommate Lauren moved out to live with her boyfriend in San Diego, I decided to fill the room instead of covering the whole $2,200 rent myself. Seemed logical. Adulting, right? I posted the ad on a Wednesday. By Friday, I had 5 messages. 4 were the usual, college kids, vague profiles. 2, is it still available messages, that ghosted as soon as I responded. And then there was this one from a guy named Eli Ramirez. His message was polite, spelled properly, yes, I notice, and he actually referenced the post, asked about internet speed, parking, and noise levels. Said he was moving back to Austin for a contract IT job, needed a place for 6 months, max. Offered to pay $1,300 a month. In cash. First and last up front. I mean, that kind of directness is rare. I figured either this guy was exactly who he said he was, or a complete red flag in khakis. We set up a Zoom call. He looked normal. Neat, even. Black-rimmed glasses, clean-shaven, dark hair, short and parted, wore a plain dark blue shirt. Told me he used to live in Austin before moving to Seattle, and that he just needed a quiet space to get through this weird transitional year. I asked him the usual questions. Do you smoke? Any pets? Girlfriend or partner visiting regularly? He laughed. None of the above. It's just me. Something about the way he said that stuck with me. Just me. Almost like a correction. Still, he was polite. Asked if I preferred text or call for communication. Didn't overshare. Said he'd like to move in the following weekend if the room felt right. Saturday, 1:45 p.m. He showed up exactly when he said he would. Wore a gray zip-up hoodie and dark jeans. Carried 2 suitcases and a box labeled Router's Gear. No moving truck. No U-Haul. When I asked if he needed help bringing stuff in, he smiled and shook his head. That's all of it. All of it? Okay, minimalism. Noted. I gave him the tour. The living room, kitchen, shared bathroom. I'd already cleaned the spare room and replaced the shower curtain. The whole place was nothing fancy, but functional. He barely looked around, just nodded a lot. Quiet neighborhood, he said after standing on the porch for a moment. That's good. He paid cash. Exactly $2,600 in neat 20s, wrapped with a blue rubber band. I gave him a key. And just like that, I had a roommate again. The first 2 weeks were fine. Quiet. Almost too quiet. Eli worked long hours in his room with the door shut. He barely used the kitchen. I'd occasionally hear him typing or pacing during calls, but he never played music, never brought guests, never left dishes in the sink. He had this routine. Up by 6:30 a.m., coffee, always from a French press. A single piece of toast. Then he'd disappear into his room until after dark. When I asked how work was going, he'd smile, nod, and say, busy. Same old. He didn't overshare, didn't ask personal questions, didn't even raise his voice once. I figured I'd hit the jackpot. Then little things started feeling off. The first time I noticed something weird was during trash night. I was tying up the kitchen garbage when I noticed the bathroom light was on, except Eli wasn't home. I know because I saw him leave an hour earlier, laptop bag in hand. He said he was meeting someone about a freelance gig, yet the bathroom door was slightly open. The light was on. The mirror was fogged like someone had just showered. I called out, Eli? No answer. I checked his room. Door shut, light off. Weird. I turned off the bathroom light, took out the trash, and brushed it off. Maybe he'd come back and left without me hearing. Maybe it was nothing. Still, it stuck with me. The next week, I heard him talking at 3 a.m. At first, I thought it was a phone call, but when I got up to grab water, I realized the voices were too close. Too quiet to be a video call. Not loud enough for me to hear words. Just murmurs, soft, low, but definitely more than one voice. Then silence. I peeked down the hallway. No light from under his door. Nothing. The next morning, over coffee, I asked casually, "You up late working last night?" He didn't look up from his mug. "Yeah, had a call with Seattle." His voice was calm, but his hand was gripping the cup tighter than usual, knuckles slightly white. Again, maybe nothing. But again, I didn't believe him. Then came the photo. One afternoon, I needed to print a return label for a package. My printer was glitching, so I asked Eli if I could use his. He'd mentioned during the Zoom call that he brought one. He said sure, it was fine, and texted me the Wi-Fi password to his personal hotspot because the printer wasn't on the house network. I stepped into his room for the first time. It was spotless. No clutter. No clothes on the floor. A single desk, a monitor, one chair. No bed. Just a roll-out mat in the corner with a thin blanket folded on top. Like he was camping in there. I printed the label, but when I turned to leave, something caught my eye. On the desk, beneath the edge of his laptop, there was a photo tucked under a clear plastic mat. A black and white picture. Looked old. A woman standing next to a young boy. They weren't smiling. But here's what hit me. The woman in the photo, she looked exactly like me. After I saw the photo, I told myself I was overthinking. A weird coincidence. A blurry black and white image of a woman who vaguely looked like me. Maybe. It wasn't even clear enough to be sure. Still, the image stayed with me. Not in a passing thought kind of way. It sat in my head. Heavy. Lodged. The woman had the same jawline. Same eyes. Same slightly slouched posture like she carried weight behind her shoulders. And the boy in the photo? His face was blurred, but he was holding her hand like it was the only solid thing left in the world. I didn't ask Eli about it. What was I supposed to say? Hey, why do you have a 40-year-old photo of a woman who looks like me? I told myself to forget it. I didn't. That night, I noticed Eli's door had a lock on the outside. Not the usual bedroom doorknob with a privacy lock. No. This was different. It was a vertical deadbolt, facing outward, meaning you could lock someone in from the hallway. I stood there for a long time after I noticed it. The hallway was dim. One light was flickering from the cheap fixture above, the kind of lazy strobe that made everything feel more sinister than it probably was. Who puts a lock on the outside of their room door? Was it always there? I texted Maya. Hey, would it be insane to ask someone why they have a prison lock on their bedroom door? What? On the outside? Yeah. Girl. Nope. I hate this. I didn't respond, because I agreed. But I didn't want to be that person, the one who assumes the worst, who makes things weird with a roommate just because he's unconventional. Still, that night, I barely slept. I kept imagining that door, that lock, the sound it would make sliding shut. The next week, Eli started acting different. It was small at first. But I noticed. He stopped doing his morning coffee routine. No toast, no press, just silence in the kitchen. He kept the blinds in the living room closed, ones I always left open during the day. I'd open them in the morning. By the time I came back from lunch, closed again. I also stopped hearing him talk at night, which you'd think would be a good thing, except now there was nothing. Like the room was empty. But it wasn't. I could hear his footsteps sometimes, his door creaking, that soft sound of floorboards shifting under weight. He was still there, but it felt wrong. Like someone had removed the sound of life and left the movements behind. 3 days after the photo incident, I woke up to the smell of bleach. It was strong, pungent, sharp enough to sting. I followed it to the hallway. His door was cracked open, barely, just enough for a sliver of bright overhead light to hit the carpet. I knocked. Hey, Eli? No answer. I knocked again, louder. Hey, everything okay? Still nothing. The smell was worse here, almost bitter, like bleach mixed with something metallic. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. Something in me said, don't. So I backed away, returned to my room, and sat on my bed, heartbeat loud in my ears. I told myself to call Maya. I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my phone and Googled him. Eli Ramirez plus Austin IT contractor. Nothing. I tried his full name with variations. Still nothing. No LinkedIn. No old social media. No portfolio. No trace of him. I looked through my old Facebook Marketplace messages. His profile wasn't there anymore. Deleted. Later that night, I waited until I heard him leave. It was around 9:15 p.m. I watched from behind the curtain as he walked out with his usual laptop bag, hoodie zipped to the collar, hands in his pockets. Once I saw his car pull away, I crept down the hallway, stared at his door. And then, against every instinct in my body, I reached for the knob. It was unlocked. The room smelled sterile. Bleach, air freshener, something floral trying to mask something else. The desk was spotless, printer gone, laptop gone, no picture on the desk this time. The mat in the corner was neatly rolled, blanket folded. I looked around carefully, didn't touch anything, but then I noticed the closet door was open just a crack. Again, just enough to whisper whistly. Look. I stepped forward. Inside there was a single duffel bag, black, zipped shut, and on the shelf above it, a box labeled Memories. I know, I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside were photos, old, faded, some Polaroids, some printed, and every single one was of the same woman, the one I'd seen in the photo before, the one who looked like me. In some, she was pregnant. In others, she was holding the same little boy. In the last one, she was alone, wearing the same dress as in the first picture, but this time standing near a grave. I put the photos back, closed the box, backed out of the room, heart pounding, and locked the door behind me. From the outside, he didn't come home that night, or the next. By day 3, I was panicking. I debated going to the police. But what was I going to say? Hi, I rented a room to a guy with no digital footprint who has a box of photos of a woman who looks like me, and also maybe he never actually sleeps here? It wasn't illegal to be weird, just unsettling. On day 4, he came back. Just like that. Quiet, no announcement, no noise. I walked out to the kitchen and saw his shoes by the door. Door locked, lights off, no sound. I slept with a knife under my pillow that night. I don't care how dramatic that sounds. The next morning there was a note on the fridge, folded, plain white paper, written in neat blocky handwriting. Sorry for the silence. Needed to go out of town for a few days. Please don't go in my room again. E. The note on the fridge stayed up for 2 days. I kept it there like evidence. Like maybe I'd wake up and it would say something else. Something more. Something that made what I saw make sense. But it didn't. It was just 4 lines in blocky handwriting, taped to the fridge like a passive-aggressive roommate reminder. Except instead of please wash your dishes, it was, don't go in my room again. I didn't. Not because of the note, but because I didn't want to know what else I might find. I was already in too deep. But once the door was locked again, once the air returned to silence, the doubt started crawling back in. What if I had misread it all? Maybe the box of photos was family stuff. Maybe the lock was just for security. Maybe the bleach was, hell, I don't know. He's a germaphobe? I kept gaslighting myself because it was easier than believing the alternative. But once you see the crack, you start seeing all of them. The coffee, that stopped first. Then the blinds, always closed. Then the shower steam when he wasn't home. And then the voices. The night after the note appeared, I heard them again. It started around 2 a.m. Soft murmurs, rising and falling like a private conversation through a wall. Except it was his voice. Just his. Talking in that same low tone. Pausing. Responding to something that wasn't there. I sat up in bed, holding my breath. I wanted to knock on the door. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call Maya, the police, anyone. But I didn't. I just listened, frozen, until I heard something that still makes my stomach twist. He said my name. Clear. Calm. Like he was reading it off a piece of paper. Jenna. Then silence. Then again. Jenna, don't go back in my room. The next morning, I was halfway out the door before I realized I didn't have a plan. I'd packed a bag, toothbrush, charger, 2 outfits. Just enough to make it feel like a sleepover, not a permanent escape. I texted Maya, me, hey, can I crash at your place tonight? Eli's just been off. Don't feel great about being here alone. Yes. Literally yes. Don't even ask. Bring snacks. I got to her place in 20 minutes. Didn't even bother with an excuse. We spent the night watching terrible reality TV and pretending it was normal. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to make her eyes go wide and her voice drop into that serious tone she rarely uses. Jenna, you know this isn't normal, right? This guy, he gives me stalker energy. I shrugged. He hasn't done anything illegal. Just creepy. Creepy's enough? She wasn't wrong. I stayed at her place 2 more nights. When I finally came back to the house, it was like nothing had changed. The blinds were still drawn. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach and lavender. Eli's door was locked. My room was untouched. But something felt off. Like I'd walked into a play that had already started, and everyone was pretending I wasn't late. I tiptoed through the house like a guest in my own home. That week, Eli started talking to me again. Not much, just surface stuff. How was work? Do you need anything from the store? Cool weather this week. His tone was polite, like a coworker you nod to in the break room, but never sit with at lunch. I responded in kind. Fine. Nope. Yeah, finally. We played the roommate game like nothing had happened, but I couldn't forget what I'd seen or what I'd heard, especially when he asked this, out of nowhere. Do you ever feel like you've lived another life? We were both in the kitchen. He was slicing an apple. I was getting water. I blinked. What? Eli glanced up, his expression unreadable. Like, you get these flashes of memories, but they're not yours. Or maybe they are, but from a long time ago, and you don't remember living them. You just feel them. My hand tightened around the glass. No, I said slowly. Can't say I have. He nodded, bit into a slice. Huh, must be just me then. That night, I had a dream. It wasn't like my usual stress dreams. No elevators falling or missed deadlines. This one was vivid, specific. I was standing in a small, dark hallway with blue wallpaper. The air smelled like mothballs. I could hear a child crying behind a door. I reached for the doorknob. When I opened it, I saw a little boy. Dark hair, pale skin, big eyes. He looked up at me and whispered, "Don't leave again." I woke up gasping, heart racing, sweat cold on my back. I couldn't shake the feeling that the boy was real, that I knew him. The next morning, I found another note, slipped under my door. You shouldn't have gone in the closet. It wasn't signed. Didn't need to be. I left the house that day and didn't come back until after midnight. When I finally did, the hallway light was off. The living room was dark. But the door to Eli's room? Slightly open. The door to Eli's room was ajar, just wide enough to see a sliver of shadowed floor. I didn't move at first, just stood there, keys in one hand, grocery bag hanging loosely from the other. Frozen in the dim hallway, like a character at the end of a horror movie who knows better than to go in, but does anyway. Except this wasn't a movie. This was my house. I listened. Nothing. Not a shuffle. Not a breath. Not even the usual hum from his always-on desk lamp. I leaned closer. Still nothing. Then, finally I whispered, "Eli?" No answer. Just silence, as thick and unnatural as the dark beyond the cracked door. I reached out and pushed it open. The hinges didn't creak. That somehow made it worse. His room looked almost staged. Everything was neat. Too neat. The bed was made military tight. His desk was clean. No laptop, no pens, no scraps of paper or open notebooks. It was like no one had ever lived there. But the closet door was open now, wide open, and the light was on. I stepped inside without meaning to. It was like my body moved ahead of my thoughts. His closet was deeper than I remembered, almost walk-in style, though I'd never seen him use it for clothes. Shelves lined the back wall. Empty hangers swung on the bar. But what pulled my attention was the small trap door at the bottom, one I definitely didn't remember seeing the first time I'd snooped in here. It looked like it had been pried open recently. The corner was chipped. There were faint smudges, grease on the wood. I crouched and pulled it up. Beneath the door, a shallow crawl space. Maybe 3 feet deep, barely enough to squeeze into. But something sat at the back. A small wooden box. Not the one with the photos. A different one. Darker wood, ornate with iron hinges. I reached in and dragged it out. It was heavy and warm, like someone had just been holding it. I hesitated, then unlatched the lid. Inside, rows of small cassette tapes, 30, maybe more, each one labeled with white stickers and handwritten dates. They spanned over 2 decades, 1999 to 2021. No names, just the dates. At the bottom, a small note, folded. I opened it. If you're reading this, then I was right to be afraid. My breath caught. The note continued. They're not memories, they're recordings. I don't know how or why, but they started when I was 5. Every year, another one. I never made them. I don't remember saying the things on them, but when I play them back, it's my voice, my fears, my dreams, and sometimes things I haven't lived yet. If they find this, it's over for me. Don't let them out, and don't listen to the last tape. My hand trembled. I didn't know what them meant or why Eli had hidden this, but I knew I couldn't just leave it. I put the box in my bag, left his room as clean as I found it, and closed the door behind me. At Maya's, we sat on the couch in silence. The box rested on the coffee table between us like a live grenade. "You brought it?" she asked. I nodded. "And you're gonna listen to them?" I nodded again. She rubbed her temples. "Jenna, I love you, but this feels like a plotline that ends with a haunted stereo and a trip to the ER. I need to know." "Know what? The guy clearly has issues. Just call the cops. Say he's unstable." I shook my head. "It's more than that. He's scared, or was. I think he was trying to protect me." She gave me a look. That's how people in cult documentaries talk before things go sideways. But she plugged in the old tape player anyway. The first tape, dated July 12th, 1999, started with static, then a child's voice. Eli's voice. He couldn't have been more than 5. "I'm in the blue room again," he whispered. "The man's outside the door. I hear him breathing." Long pause. "I think he's waiting for me to open it. I think if I open it, he'll take me." More static, then humming. It wasn't a song I recognized, just eerie, tuneless noise. We played another. "I had the dream again," teenage Eli said. "I was watching myself sleep. Then I got up, but I was still in bed. 2 of me. The one walking looked wrong." Another tape, 2015. "I saw her today. I think her name's Jenna." Maya jerked. I went cold. "I haven't met her yet, but I will. She's kind, rather bad, and scared, and I don't want to hurt her, but something's coming." Silence. Then softly, "Please don't let her find this." Maya stopped the tape. "We're done," she said. "No. Jenna, I need to hear the last one." "You don't need." "I need to." I pulled it out, dated just a week ago. When we pressed play, I expected horror, a scream, a curse, something cinematic, but instead it was just Eli. Calm, tired, "I'm sorry." Pause. I tried to stop them, I really did. Long pause. Breathing. "She knows now. I think she found the closet, maybe even the box. I hope she doesn't hate me." Static. "If you're listening to this, Jenna, get out." The tape clicked. The room was silent. Maya looked at me, mouth slightly open. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "Get out of what?" I didn't have an answer, but my phone buzzed. New message, from an unknown number. "You listened, didn't you?" The message sat on my screen like a dare. "You listened, didn't you?" No name, no reply option, just the message. I stared at it for a full minute, heart tapping out some warning signal in my chest. Not quite panic, not quite denial. Like my body knew what I didn't. Maya leaned over my shoulder. "Block it." "I can't. There's no sender." She looked at me, then at the phone again. "That's not possible." I turned the screen toward her. "Tell that to whoever sent it." Her mouth parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Instead, she picked up the tape box and moved it to her kitchen counter, as if distance might contain whatever strange gravity it carried. We didn't sleep. Maya made tea. I sat on her couch, trying not to spiral. "He recorded things that hadn't happened yet," I said. She nodded slowly. "He knew your name. And said I'd find it. He knew I'd listen." Maya stirred honey into her cup like she needed the rhythm to stay grounded. "So either he's psychic, or something else was using him to send messages." That something else hovered in the air like smoke neither of us could see. "Do you think he's alive?" I asked quietly. Maya didn't answer. She didn't have to. I went back home the next morning. The sun was too bright, the street too quiet. My apartment looked exactly the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. Inside, I checked the closet in Eli's old room again. The crawlspace door was closed. The floor was spotless, like nothing had ever been touched. I stood in the center of the room, unsure of what I was even looking for anymore. Clues? A sign? Some message from beyond the tapes? But all I had was dust and echoes. And silence. So I did the only thing left. I returned the tapes. I placed the wooden box back in the crawlspace, closed the door, shut the closet, and walked out. That night, I dreamed of the blue room. I don't know how I knew it was the room from the tapes, but I did. The air was thick. The walls pulsed like lungs, and something was behind the door. A man, maybe, or something wearing the idea of a man. I stood on the other side, frozen. Then I heard my own voice. Faint, childlike. "She's not ready," it whispered. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, with a nosebleed soaking into my pillow. The following week passed in fragments. I barely slept, barely ate. Work didn't exist. Friends texted. I didn't answer. Even Maya stopped pushing. I think she was scared too. On the 8th day, my landlord emailed to say someone had requested a change of address form for my unit. I never did that. And when I checked with the post office, they said it had come in personally, signed in my name. I started carrying a box cutter everywhere. Paranoid? Maybe, but it made me feel something close to sane. I triple-locked my door, slept with my bedroom light on. Every time I opened a drawer, I half expected to find another tape. Then, one night I got home from Maya's and found a cassette on my pillow. No label, no case, just the tape. I didn't bring it inside. I picked it up with a tissue, walked straight to the dumpster behind the complex, and threw it in. I didn't sleep that night either. It all came to a head on a Sunday. I'd just gotten back from the store, 2 bags of groceries, keys in my mouth, fumbling to unlock the door, and it was already open. Not cracked. Open. I stood frozen. Then I heard a shuffle inside. I didn't go in. I backed away, dropped the groceries, ran to my car, locked the doors, and called 911. The police didn't find anyone. No signs of forced entry, nothing stolen, nothing broken. But in the center of my living room coffee table was the last thing I expected to see, Eli's sketchbook. The one with the forest drawings, except now every page had been filled. And each one was the same image, over and over. Me, asleep in my bed, someone standing in the doorway, watching. The final page had one line scrawled in the margin, "Get out." That night, I packed a bag. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay. Not after that. Not after knowing someone or something had been in my house, had watched me, had drawn me sleeping. Maya let me crash at her place again. No questions this time. No theories. Just blankets and silence. I took the guest room and locked the door behind me, and I prayed there wouldn't be another tape in the morning. Weeks passed. No new cassettes, no notes, no phone glitches, just stillness. Eventually, I found a new apartment. Different neighborhood. Different energy. I changed my number. Left the old place behind like it had never been mine. But sometimes, when the light is low, or the wind hits just right, I swear I hear that static hum. The one from the first tape. I never saw Eli again. I don't know if he's alive, or if he ever really existed the way I thought he did. But if you're listening, if you're reading this and thinking about picking up something strange, chasing a mystery because you're lonely or bored or curious, just don't. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. Some voices aren't meant to be heard. And some tapes? You should never play them. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?